is in the 60s in New York City, 26 Second Avenue, where he was a regular guest. It was years later that he joined in Boston as a Grahastha. He is still preaching his glories around the world. He is 68 years old, now more than that perhaps, and he has been preaching in South America and has been assigned the work of setting up regular Bhakti Shastri and other seminar programs in Trinidad and Guyana. Prabhupada, Prabhupada Prabhu has also passed the Bhakti Shastri test. His Holiness Guru Prasad Swami has recommended him a member of the Caribbean Council, and His Holiness Bhakti Prabhupada-vrata Damodara Swami now is preaching in Miami. Without much ado, I would like to pass it on to His Holiness Bhakti Prabhupada-vrata Damodara Swami.
Haribol, Hare Krishna. Okay, now I'm back to the gallery view again. All right, since I have a whole hour of this Vanamali Prabhu, should I chant Jai Radha Madhava or something? Or maybe just a quick little bhajan?
Yes, Maharaj, feel free, yes.
My cartoon.
In the meanwhile, all the devotees who are online, as we have already announced that His Holiness Rasamrita Swami is not able to join today. So we have His Holiness Bhakti Prabhupada-vrata Damodara Swami Maharaj who will be speaking today.
Namaha Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Bhoravani Pracharine Nirvashesha Sunyavadi Paschatyanti Satarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Siva Shati Gaur Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gopi Hare Hare Bo Shri Shri Radha Gopi Balavati. Let me try to get back to the gallery. I mean, it keeps escaping me.
Maharaj, can you also try turning on your video, please?
Oh, okay. Start video. Krishna. Here I am. I'm not 68. I'll be 75. Starting 75.
Yes. Yes, Maharaj. I think, the biography which I was reading, it was 7 years old.
So, all right. I feel very fortunate to have this opportunity to speak with you. I notice many names. I'm wondering if I see one devotee, Narendra, maybe a different Narendra. I don't think it's the same Narendra that was my Sankirtan leader one time on traveling Sankirtan. The same Narendra that did the stained glass windows in the Prabhupada's Palace of Gold in Vrindavan. Probably it's a different Narendra. Okay. Anyway, I do recognize some names, and I'm sure there are others I don't see on the screen. So nice to get back to my old associates. a long time. It's been a number of years since I last visited Boston Temple. This will have to be a little bit like autobiographical. Because this is my life. I mean, my autobiography has everything to do with Boston Temple. As Prabhu Vanamali Pandit mentioned, I actually, can I use the word joined? Maybe. I didn't move into the temple. Srila Prabhupada asked me personally to simply join us. We will solve all your problems back in 1966 in November. And I was not able to. I told Prabhupada I'm not ready. And anyway, it's not about how I came to Krishna consciousness. It's about my relationship with the devotees and the deities in the Boston Yatra. But a little background is required, I suppose. So I was, I started chanting in 1966, but I was under the influence of LSD. And so I was pretty wild and I didn't know what I was doing. But somehow Lord Chaitanya, he can be very tricky. And somehow he engaged this very disoriented individual in chanting, even outside. One time I even chanted at Allen Ginsberg's place. I sat down on his kitchen floor and started chanting Hare Krishna. This was probably late 66, early 67. And he joined me, the famous poet. He joined me and he had these little finger symbols and we had kirtan for at least 5 or 10 minutes. So not knowing what I was really doing, but I was actually a wild, crazy instrument in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, just beginning in the Western world in 1966. So I moved to Boston in 1969, and I lived there for 11 years. I didn't know Boston. At the time I actually was legally married, which is a little unusual for hippies to get legally married, but somehow I became a little conservative. And what happened was she found a little ad in the Boston Phoenix. I don't know if that newspaper still exists. And we went there, we didn't know Boston, and it was, we got to 95 Glenville Avenue and we saw all kinds of different things and I was already chanting, even on japa beats, I was already chanting Hare Krishna. I wasn't chanting, probably I'm still not chanting the pure holy name, but I was chanting as best as I could. Sometimes more rounds, sometimes less rounds. But I was chanting on beats, and when I got there, I was quite surprised. I had already met Srila Prabhupada in 1966, 3 years earlier, and I was so surprised, I was shocked to see paraphernalia of Krishna. There was a sign on the floor, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Temple, white sign and cut with a jigsaw and painted red. And I saw a basket full of poetry books, and the name of the poetry book was Krishna. And I saw incense and some other things that are distinctly from the devotees. And I was asking these hippies that were selling the business. It was a junk store. It was called Cornucopia. This is 95 Glenville Avenue. Keep in mind, this is the temple that Satsvarup, at the time Das Adhikar, started. I don't know the exact year. It could have been probably 68 or late 67. And Prabhupada came there. It's a tirtha, it's a chakra. He came there on a number of occasions and preached, and you have videos of Prabhupada in Boston, you have recorded tapes, and so you can hear his lectures. I've heard many times different lectures he gave in Boston. So 95 Glenville Avenue. So that was the first location of the Hare Krishna temple. I asked these hippie guys, I said, what are you guys doing with this Krishna stuff, Krishna paraphernalia? And they said, what? Where have you been? Everybody knows this was the Hare Krishna temple a few months ago. And as we used to say in the hippie days, it blew my mind. I mean, you know, it gets back to the same thing we always talk about, these amazing coincidences that occur in our lives, how Krishna somehow, as the Paramatma, how somehow he guides us to come to Krishna. So here I am, you know, how many businesses are there in Boston? How many stores? And I didn't know Boston, and somehow or another, I come to a Tirtha, where Prabhupada placed his lotus feet. Satsvarup Maharaj started that temple. Satsvarup Maharaj, when we started, it was a terrible location for business. So we only stayed there less than a year. But Srila Prabhupada, by his mercy, he brought me to that place, Super Soul. And then we moved to Commonwealth Avenue, and then we got a big place, 5,000 square feet on Harvard Avenue. The business was called Zeke's. Zeke was the name of a monkey. The monkey came with the business. And Satsvarup Maharaj, later on, he recalled, and, oh, you had a monkey in the basement, because he used to come sometimes and buy some old furniture for putting in 38 North Beacon Street. I used to go there also. So there was an amazing so-called coincidence that I ended up actually almost living in that store. I put in so much time trying to somehow make it work. And it's all Krishna's arrangement, because later on, when the business expanded on Harvard Avenue, and some of you may remember that place, the whole Harinam Sankirtan used to come down into the store. It was in the basement, 5,000 square feet of old furniture and junk. And we buy junk and sell antiques, you know, have a adage. So the whole Harinam Sankirtan used to come down the stairs, scaring away some customers, but I didn't mind because they brought prasadam. And I used to take out the checkbook and write a check from Zeke's Old Time Furniture for $5. And the devotees would give prasadam. My right-hand man, who drank too much beer, and he was a very professional jazz musician. He used to tour with Woody Herman, et cetera, et cetera. His name was Don McBride. And I said, Don McBride, this is prasadam. You have to take some. And he said, I just want the bread. Okay, so I gave him the bread. Big hunks of bread were included in the plates the devotees brought to us. So he got the mercy also. And anyway, that business was dovetailed nicely by the mercy of the devotees. They guided me how I can dovetail the business with the temple. And when devotees would bloop, you know what bloop means, right? When some devotees would bloop, they couldn't meet the standard of living in a temple in 38 North Beacon Street at the time when I had the business. So they would come to me and I would give them employment and try to help them. I could mention a few names, but maybe that would be inappropriate. So there are different incidents that took place. First, I'd like to honor some departed devotees that helped me very much. I'm sure there are many that, in addition, that I knew. Hopefully not too many as yet, but we're all on the way out in my generation. So one is Srinath Prabhu. Srinath Prabhu came from a pious Catholic background. He was like my mentor. When I finally actually moved in the temple in July of 1975, he was there to greet me. And I hope this may be in poor taste on such a glorious occasion that you're observing, anniversary of the deities. But I mean, it's what you call local color. You know. So when I joined, I had to use the restroom, and I freaked out, as we used to call it. I said, Srinath, where's the toilet paper? There's no toilet paper. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, well, we just clean with water. We don't use toilet paper. So that was my initial introduction to a different way of life. And I adjusted to it. The shower, and now we're at 72 Con Ave, that's where I joined. The shower was so freezing, you can't imagine. And in those days, we were quite, even Srinath maybe a little fanatically, but he even made a statement, hot shower is illicit sex. Oh my God. So we actually took ice cold showers even in the winter. And the temple president at the time I joined, he was just coming in as temple president. His name was Ajahn. And he was accompanied by his assistant, Kardama Muni Prabhu. Kardama Muni became my Bhakta leader, took me out to Amherst. And anyway, Ajahn comes running up the stairs because when I took the cold shower, I was screaming and yelling because it was so freezing. I just never had such an experience. But you had to do it. They said, well, the whole temple hears you screaming and yelling. Stop this. Anyway, there are other details that I don't think I should mention, but it was, you know, maybe in those days, it was quite an experience to join the Hare Krishna movement. It was kind of a total type of thing. It wasn't that you just chant rounds and worship Krishna in your home. I didn't even have a home at a certain point. And we're going to get to that now. More on this idea of coincidences that aren't really coincidences. They're so unlikely that they were coincidences. The business expanded, as I mentioned. I now had 5 employees, believe it or not. Not bad for a hippie. And we didn't have a place to live because the marriage broke up amicably, and I ended up with the business as my part of the deal when I became separated or divorced from that wife. And so we couldn't sleep because there was Baronet's Pizza Place above it. So I told Don, and one girl was there, we were sleeping in different parts of the store, no problem, plenty of beds set up. You can sleep in a different bed every night, not exactly like the Goswamis, a different tree every night. And we couldn't sleep, so we went outside. This was about 12 midnight already, and because the jukebox was pounding away with the bass, and it's keeping us awake. So we went outside, we walked to the corner, and there was another pizza place, and there was a hippie with hair so long it was down to his rear end. And he was playing the guitar, and I asked to play the guitar. I took the guitar and I started chanting Hare Krishna on the guitar. He said, hey, I really like you people. Why don't you come live with us? I said, you're serious? Great, we don't have a place to live. So the 3 of us, Don McBride and this girl and myself, she was also an employee. Then we went to, very close by, to a street called Chester Street. Now, Satsvarup Maharaj and Lilamrita, he lists this as Hester Street, but it's a typo. It's actually Chester Street, around the corner. And that was also a tirtha, because that's a place that Prabhupada stayed. As I mentioned, Srinath, another very departed Vaishnava, in this case Vaishnavi, her name was Govinda Ballava Dasi. She was a great Sankirtan devotee. She used to collect many, many pounds of boga from the Haymarket in Boston, Haymarket, where they have on Saturdays a big market of food, of produce. And so she confirmed what I'm about to relate. We came with this man, this hippie guy. He wasn't a devotee, he was just a hippie. And we walked into his place on Chester Street, the downstairs apartment, the first thing that I noticed was there were DBT posters, like those paintings, early Jadurani art, excuse me. Right. And I said, hey, where'd you get these you got these Krishna posters here? How's that? He said, well, you don't know what they are. We just like them. All right, that's nice. So he assigned one room for Don, one room for the girl. And then I said, well, what about my room? Where am I supposed to stay? So he said, go down the hallway. You see the bathroom at the end, make a right, and you can stay in that room. Now, you're not going to believe this, but it's a fact. When I went into the room, and you'll see how this relates to Mataji, Srimati Radha Govinda Balava. So I go in the room, and guess what I see? In like magic marker, and it was pretty magical. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra was written, kind of scrolled quickly, but still very legible, all over the walls and the ceiling, even. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, all over the place. Now, I was already chanting and had been with Prabhupada, and then somehow or another, I come into this room. Now, how many rooms in Boston do you find that have Hare Krishna mantra all over the walls and the ceiling? Pretty unusual. Something's happening. The Lord in the heart does it again. And there I am. And then that turned out to be Mataji's last LSD trip before she joined the temple. She just went wild and started writing Hare Krishna all over the place, which is a very Krishna conscious way of dealing with a wild LSD trip. So trip, most of you know what that means. It means like a period of intoxication of the drug, LSD. We used to call it tripping. So later on, in the Brooklyn Temple in New York, she happened to visit, and she confirmed that of the two apartments, that was the apartment that Prabhupada stayed in. So that's pretty amazing. DVT posters and a devotee having stayed in that same room that I later stayed in, and Hare Krishna all over the walls and the ceiling. It's a chakra. It's a tirtha. It's a very, yes, why not? That's what Prabhupada stayed for some time. So these coincidences seem to be more than coincidences. Super soul all the way. Something like humorous was when I joined, I was pretty much had no choice but to go to traveling Sankirtan with the devotee by the name of Agrani Prabhu. And we went all over the country, and it helped me a lot. I was not good at it, and I found it the most difficult thing I ever did in my life. It was very purifying. It was like West Point for the Marines. It was very, very austere, very challenging, all day long. And then at night you go to the drive-in movie, and you sneak into the drive-in movie so you don't have to pay. And it was quite austere. Prasadam was not very abundant. And so after the first few weeks when I came back, the temple president at the time, I mentioned Ajahn Prabhu, he said, Bhakta Lan, my name used to be Lan, L-O-N. He said, Bhakta Lan, since you were out on traveling Sankirtan, you've become so much more humble. And I have to admit that the traveling Sankirtan gave me a much better perspective on, the devotees and the deities and Krishna Prasadam. You appreciate so much, absence makes the heart grow fonder. You're out on traveling Sankirtan, you don't have those resources, those spiritual shelters. And it was so much nicer to deal with devotees than to deal with, in those days, the non-devotees in the parking lot, they weren't so nice in most cases. They didn't, Hare Krishna was still something weird. They lumped us in, they thought we were a cult, etc. We should mention the history that when after a year and a half on traveling Sankirtan, I became the temple treasurer. And it was amazing how much Lakshmi was collected. We had up to 5 traveling Sankirtan parties. We used to buy new vans. Devotees would sometimes fall asleep and crash them up. They would buy another one. We buy new vans, and you had a Mataji's party, and different, Bhaktas would come, just like in my own case. Bhakta comes, and the next thing you know, they're out on traveling Sankirtan. So there was quite a lot of Lakshmi coming in. And we even bought the building next door, but unfortunately we didn't keep that building at 70 Ave. So on a humorous note, when I don't remember if I was already, it was probably before I became treasurer, maybe it was right after I first joined. The devotees used to do all kinds of shenanigans, all kinds of wild things for distributing books and also for collecting donations or Lakshmi. And on Easter, on Christmas, they dress up as Santa Claus. There's an amazing scene with devotees like HH Prabhu and others, half dressed in Santa Claus and half in Western clothes. And Bhavananda and another big guru were there at that time. And there was a kirtan with half Santa Clauses jumping up and down. So on Easter, so Ajamid, he was the treasurer before I became the treasurer, a devotee by the name of Ajamid. He was a short-bodied devotee. His wife's name was Shakuntala. And and he told me, Bhaktalan, we're going to put you in an Easter bunny costume. You're going to become an Easter bunny. And they probably would have actually done it. Unfortunately, for me anyway, I never had to do that. Although I did have to sometimes dress up as a clown. That was another thing. But, and I don't mean that, I'm not trying to like criticize the activities per se, but the sacrifices that we made were pretty far out. All right, now there's a picture that I asked Vandamali Pandit Prabhu to share with you.
Giridhan Prabhu, can you share the picture, please? Yeah, there you go, Maharaj.
Okay, so now, why am I showing this picture? This is in Boston, this is Philadelphia, but it directly connects with Boston Leela, you can say, because I had, when the business expanded, Zeke's Old Time Furniture, no more monkey was there except for me. Actually, they called me Zeke, maybe that was appropriate. So that was the name of the monkey. So the thing is that I was asked by, I believe it was Adi Keshava Prabhu, I don't think he had taken sannyasis yet, and he asked if we can go in the truck from Boston to Philadelphia. So that's the connection with Boston. So we went, and it was quite a wild ride. I don't have time to describe all the crazy things that happened. We were way overweight. Somehow Krishna protected us. We were going over bridges that said weight limit 3 tons or something like that, 4 tons, and we had much more tonnage than that. We had about 35, 40 devotees. Bhakta Neil, he was not initiated yet, I don't believe. He would drive the truck. I was driving it sometimes. Maybe Adi Keshava drove. And it was a long drive. And we had different adventures. And we got to Philadelphia, and then that's for Rath Yatra, and Prabhupada's coming out at Woodlawn Avenue. The house was on. It was an old house. The front porch actually cracked, broken because of the weight of the devotees on the front porch. The devotees ran in the back, got some cinder blocks and propped it up. Those were the good old days. The place was so packed with devotees, I couldn't get in to actually hear the class. But there I am standing offering Prabhupada pranams. You can see me at Prabhupada's left. All these Matajis, they're all bowing down properly, but I'm not bowing down, I'm standing up and offering Prabhupada pranams only. But there I was, 29 years old. A month after this, I would join the temple at 72 Kamer. And now what's happening here is that this connects with Boston also, is that little girl is from Boston. Her name is Serena. And she came with her mother. And she's very boldly, in the photo, you can't see it here, but she's got some shower clogs that are at least twice as big as her little feet. And she's approaching Prabhupada. And what is she saying? She's saying, Srila Prabhupada, when I make the garlands, I put the needle and I put the red flower, and I don't know, do I put the next flower, and how do I, she's asking all these very specific questions from the guru, how to make flower garlands in devotional service. So what's going to happen now is Srila Prabhupada, you can see he's patiently listening to her, kind of looking at her and listening. And then he is about to take off one of those two garlands, probably the thicker one that's on top, and he'll put it on Serena's little shoulders, and he'll say, simply study this and you'll see how it is done, how to make the garland. So this is a very nice Leela, and I'm sharing this picture because this is where we got to in the Zeke's truck, the Zeke's furniture truck. We got down here to Philadelphia from Boston. So you can take the picture off now. I think it served its purpose.
Okay.
Thank you. So where are we? Now there's an interesting incident that occurred with Niranjana Swami. He was just initiated. He was Bhakti Neil Byers, lived in a suburb of Boston, and Srila Prabhupada had met him, and he instructed the temple president Tredas to take special care of this boy, this very nice boy. Take special care. So Tredas felt a very specific obligation to make sure that he protects Dr. Neil, or he just got initiated as Niranjana Das. So the business went through different changes. My business partner was drinking too much beer, along with my right-hand man, but the business partner, I was getting too much. So I made arrangement that gave him some money, and he was no longer owner. So I told Tredas Prabhu, I said, look, let's make a deal, transcendental business deal. I said, you become half owner, the temple could be like half owner of the business. We never formalized that, but that was the deal. And I just need one good man to help me with moving the furniture around and just to help me manage the store. So they gave me Bhakti Neil, or recently initiated Niranjana Das. So he became my employee. He was driving the truck during that first day. And I was really happy to have him because he was really good. He was going to be very helpful. And of course, he had such a nice personality. And I was very happy. This is called dovetailing. I can have your cake and eat it too. I mean, I was able to continue doing my business at the same time, have association with devotees. Not only that when they come in and do Harinam in the store, but and visit me and bring prasadam, but have an active relationship with the devotees in terms of this service or this business. Then in the evening, Tradas came to see what was going on, the temple president. And he said, no, this is the end of this. He nipped it, we said, we nipped it. In other words, he cut it short. So I only had Naranjana Das as my assistant for only one day. And I felt very sick. I even wrote a letter to Prabhupada lamenting this. And because Tradas felt there were too many girls and too much Maya and smoking and this and that. So it didn't seem like it was a good environment for Naranjana Das. So he very duly followed Prabhupada's guideline to protect him by taking him away from me and Zeeks. So we, a few years ago, probably at least 10 years ago, Tradas and Naranjana Swami and myself, we all happened to be together. Maybe it was the occasion of, could it have been in 2015, that recently, when the huge festival that you had of Prabhupada's arrival in America was such a wonderful festival. We had that big boat we all went on to retrace Prabhupada's route when he was approaching Commonwealth Pier. It might have been then, but we were all together in the temple, and this story we all three of us shared for the pleasure of the devotees who were present. Anyway, the business went on for some time, but then it didn't take that long, and I got fed up with it. Too many things happened. Krishna made arrangements, and I got smashed. And Yasyaham Anugrinami Harishe Tadanam Shanai. Some of you know what that refers to. I remember very wonderful festivals in Boston, large festivals. Dininath Prabhu is a great Kirtaniya. I hope he's still around. He was leading such beautiful kirtan for Janmashtami, and the full house, full the temple room, that long, narrow temple room, which most of you are quite familiar with, in 72. Kamev, it was absolutely filled. These festivals were so inspiring. And memories like that. What I'll do now is I'll jump ahead, not ahead, this is probably circa 1971, where now it was different from 1966. In 1966, you're supposed to go up and speak with the Swami. That was the protocol. But it didn't take long for it to become just the opposite. You have to be blessed by the devotees to give you darshan with Srila Prabhupada, not just any crazy guy can just approach Prabhupada. In 1966 at 26 Second Avenue, I was quite, even my father, when consulted with Prabhupada what to do about me, because I was really, I think I was diagnosed as an ambulatory schizophrenic, which is almost as bad as a full-fledged schizophrenic. Whatever I was, psychologically, wasn't that great. And and Prabhupada would be dealing with me under those circumstances. But I was a little bit less crazy. At least I was no longer taking LSD. In 1975, I was starting to follow the principles best as I could at the time. And the devotees were very merciful, so they arranged for me to have darshan with Srila Prabhupada. So that was my last personal darshan. And this was a very significant encounter where it relates back to my first encounters with Prabhupada. Again, this isn't It's not supposed to be about how I came to Krishna consciousness, but I hope it's not inappropriate on today's occasion to share with you this list. At least it was in Boston. It was on 38 North Beacon Street. So it connects in that way. And the devotees were very merciful. Unfortunately, they made a little mistake when they introduced me again, or reintroduced me to Srila Prabhupada. Now Srila Prabhupada or Srila Prabhupada, no longer addressed as Swamiji or the Swami for a long time, Srila Prabhupada. So they said, Srila Prabhupada, this is Bhaktalan. He used to talk with you many times at 61 2nd Avenue. And I said, oh my God, why'd they have to do that? And I was a little bit more inhibited than I was in 1966. I was a little bit scared to butt in and say, no, it wasn't 60. I was never at that place. 61, that's the second temple. Excuse me again. I was at 26 2nd Avenue, not 61 2nd Avenue. So instead of correcting that error, I tried to give Srila Prabhupada some hints, so to try to help him remember me. And I said, Srila Prabhupada, when I used to speak with you in 1966, I was very crazy. Of course, that wasn't such a shrewd thing to say because I want to say, let me adjust the fan because it's making me cough. I'll be right back. So it wasn't so intelligent because I wasn't the only one who was crazy. You know, plenty of crazy young people that Prabhupada had to deal with. I said, I was very crazy. And Prabhupada raised his eyebrow like this, and he looked at me, opened his eyes like this, and he said, oh, are you still crazy? Like that. Prabhupada had an amazing sense of humor. He looked at me and spoke to me in just the kind of way that if someone's kind of crazy, that would make it, make them even more crazy. Prabhupada was sort of teasing me a little bit, but I took it literally that he was actually asking me if I'm still crazy, and I said, no, I'm not crazy anymore, Srila Prabhupada. And he could see I was getting a little agitated, so he said, that's okay. He said, you don't. He said, okay, so just what are you doing? What is your situation? What is your situation? He was asking. So again, along those same lines, trying to convince him that I wasn't crazy, I started telling him, I have an apartment, I have 2 trucks, I have a wife, more or less. I have a business. I was telling him all these things I have. I was still pretty unbalanced. I was telling him all these things I had, thinking that way he'll know that I'm not crazy, as if by having these things, it means you're not crazy. Not at all. So he could see, I said, he said, it's okay. He said, you don't have to move in the temple at this time. You don't have to move in the temple. You stay with your wife, you stay with your business, and continue. But he said, I only ask one thing of you. He said, simply try to understand Krishna. So that was his last personal instruction, except there was one other sort of addendum to that. I offered obeisances. In 1966, I didn't often do that, but in this case, I became at least that much educated. I offered my obeisances, and I'm going out the other door, which will run to Tulsi area. And this is at 38 North Beacon Street. And as I'm going out, Prabhupada gave me one last instruction. If you can take it as that. He said, and we are not asking for any money. it's a good thing I didn't follow that one. I became a regular donor to the 72 Kamer after that. So that was my last darshan with Prabhupada, and that was at 38 North Beacon Street. So yeah, there were many times I would visit 38 North Beacon Street and 72 Kamer. There was a devotee, Shivananda Prabhu, who Prabhupada credited as the first devotee who went to Europe. He was a devotee who single-handedly started the movement. We received a letter from Prabhupada at 72 Kamer. They said that Shivananda is coming. He single-handedly started the movement in Europe. He was the first one that went to Europe, probably in '67. So you should take advantage of this good association. So this Shivananda Prabhu, he and his wife, Madan Mohan Mohini, they became like my mother and father in a sense. They took, I already mentioned, he tried to train me up in deity worship later on, and I was not very competent at all. But they encouraged me a lot, and he would ask me every week. He would have me make another promise and to spend more time with the devotees and maybe do more service and come more. And finally, I made so many promises. He said, "Well, why don't I just sleep over? I'm here all the time anyway." And he said, "Yes, very nice." So I moved in, and unfortunately, the common-law wife, and we had a 1-year-old baby, and unfortunately, they can only last there for 4 days, and I just couldn't leave. I was just so distressed in material life. I had to take shelter of Shri Shivada Gauri Vallabha and the devotees and the mercy in different ways. So unfortunately, I guess I have some guilt in that. Family life was not going so well anyway. But anyway, that was the end of my Grihastha life after 4 days. And traveling Sankirtan, and Ajahn instructed Agrani Prabhu to dye my cloths. And the next thing you know, I was wearing saffron. So I was wearing saffron since probably 76 or something like that, 1976. So these are some memories of my encounters with Prabhupada in the second Boston temple, that particular last darshan. I also went back to 1966 in New York. And something about how my business was dovetailed with devotional service. Adhikeshva even said, "It's the best devotee business we ever had," because it was steady. Every single week, I pretended the temple was like another employee, which it wasn't. But I would give the temple the same donation that we all got paid, which was $125 a week. It seems like nothing, but in those days it was a little something anyway. And so every single week I was able to give that donation. And I interpret Prabhupada's instruction. We're not asking for any money. It's the way a aristocratic gentleman reminds me that as trying to be a grihastha and doing business, that it's very appropriate that I give some financial support to the temple. So I'm glad that I didn't take his instruction literally. I didn't follow it to the letter, and I actually took it, the essence of it. I'll just give one last memory where my older sister, she's more like impersonalist, just like most people, unfortunately. And I invited her to come to 72 Kamer for Sunday love feast. And then I said, "So how do you like it?" You know, I said, "Well, of course I liked it. It was great drumming, good vegetarian food. People seemed pretty nice. It reminded me of the 60s, as she told me." So somehow or another, she got some favorable impression. I was very inexpert. I didn't know how to really preach to people, especially when I first joined. It was nice that Ajahn was able to tolerate me, Ajahn Prabhu. And sometimes he would warn me. But again, the traveling Sankirtan really mellowed me out a lot. I became less difficult to deal with after I had that experience, that purifying experience. One last quick thing is we were out in Amherst. I mentioned Kardama Muni Prabhu became my Bhakti leader. And he took me out to Amherst. We had 3 Brahmins and 2 Bhaktas. 3 Brahmins was Kardama Muni, Mathuresh Prabhu, and the same Srinath Prabhu, the late Srinath Prabhu I mentioned. They were the 3 Brahmins, and the 2 Bhaktas was myself and Bhakta Mike. Bhakta Mike became Muktavanya Prabhu. And there were lots of incidents that took place there. At Amherst, a big university, the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. And there was one incident with Srinath Prabhu where we were doing Sankirtan at Northampton, a town in Massachusetts. And that was a very tough pick, as we say. It was a very tough place to collect, and somehow people were especially cold there. So anyway, I had a tough time, and money at that time, I only collected $25. So, and the next day I was supposed to get initiated with Gadadhar Pandit and a number of other devotees. Shivananda Singh, his wife, Harakant, and a number of other devotees. So I told Srinath, I said, no, I'm not going to get initiated tomorrow. So why not? I only collected $25. I'm a loser. I'm no good. I got so depressed. I said, I don't think I should get initiated. And Srinath Prabhu, he looked at me. He opened his eyes and said, Prabhu, take the mercy, take the mercy, take the mercy. So I'm forever grateful to Srinath Prabhu for making me change my decision. And the next day we had initiations. Prabhupada was not there physically. Tamal Krishna Goswami was in the proper sense of the term, he was the Ritvik priest. He's the one who chanted on my beads on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. And Ajahn was also kind of officiating, Ajahn Prabhu. And then they went through the different names, and and my name, Lon, began with L. So when they got to the names of L, I was not included. So I said, I knew it, I blew it, I knew it. I knew I was not going to get initiated. Just see, they're skipping my name, and oh, well, what can I do? I'm just a loser, and not getting initiated. So then at the end of the others, then to my great surprise and delight, Ajahn Prabhu started making a speech about me and saying, we have here Bhaktalan. He's a very special devotee. He gave up everything and he had a business and he helped the temple and he came. And he had encounters, he had many encounters with Srila Prabhupada in 1966. And so his name is Prabhupada Das. So I kind of like that. It's kind of a nice thing. So I ended up getting the mercy and got that name. How did I get that name? Ajahn was with Prabhupada somewhere in India or Europe, and he was helping Prabhupada pick names for hundreds of initiations and new initiates, and it was just so much. Prabhupada didn't have the time, Srila Prabhupada, to think about each one. And of course, he's empowered. He somehow connected. But it was Ajahn who chose that name, and Prabhupada accepted that I can have that name. There's another Prabhupada Das, also Grihastha devotee, who's also a disciple of Prabhupada. There's even a letter from Prabhupada to that Prabhupada Das. Sometimes devotees, they doubt that you're going to have the same name as your guru, but anyway, that's not. So, all right, so these are, different memories. I hope that they were relevant and I didn't go too far afield. So I'm seeing some of your faces now. Actually, I'd like to see more of you. Can I see if I can switch to the gallery view or something? How can I get there? I'm not too technically oriented. My generation, what the heck do we know? Most of it. View, speaker, gallery. Okay, there you all are in all your glory, Hare Krishna. But you're spotlighting my video, but oh, okay, I guess I can't see you all. That's all right. Maybe I can hear from some of you, if anyone. Vanamali Prabhu, I guess we're very strict on time, so it's
Yes,
now
sir.
9. I wanted to any interaction, but if there's not, then I understand completely. Otherwise, if you give permission, if anyone has a question.
Maharaj, today we are running very strict on time. Kindly forgive us for today. We can have the question answer session some other time.
Okay. So thank you all so much for giving me the opportunity. Maybe Vanamali Prabhu, do you want to say the last words as I disappear over the horizon?
Yes. Today was very mysterious thing which happened. Now, unfortunately, we could not have His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Swami. And Maharaj was texting me just about that time when I got a message that we won't have His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Swami. And then I happened to ask Maharaj, we don't have anyone. Would you like to please take up that spot? Maharaj immediately agreed. So I see that this is a whole arrangement of Shri Radha Gopal, that His Holiness Bhakti Prabhupada-vrata Damodara Swami was supposed to speak. And there you go. We have, by the mercy of Shri Radha Gopal, we heard wonderful memories from His Holiness. So thank you, dear Prabhupada Bhakti Prabhupada-vrata Damodara Swami Maharaj, for kindly agreeing to speak on the at last minute. And we would love to hear from you in the future, Maharaj. I'll get in touch with you later so that we can have one more session at ISKCON Boston. On behalf of entire Boston.
But don't be surprised if I come up to Boston sometimes again. It is my alma mater, Krishna consciousness.
Maharaj, that is your home. Any